listening to the music and my voice, but it won't be too much longer now. Thank you all very much for your patience, and then we'll get going properly. Right, we're nearly there now. Okay. Well, how fantastic to see so many of you here already. So many people with the same enthusiasm I'm sure that we're all feeling right now, ready to get this going. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the Many's campaign launch. I'm so glad you're all with us this evening. My name's Jen Forbes. I'm a trade unionist based in Truro, and I'm also a candidate as part of the Many, standing in the Southwest region alongside Terry Deans. I'm still just going to give it one more minute because just as I thought we were nearly down to everybody let in, as another whole load of people coming in the waiting room, maybe just give it one more minute and then we'll just get going properly. So we've got lots of information we want to share with you tonight, and obviously we want to save a little bit of time at the end as well so we can get some questions in. So I won't leave it too much longer and then we'll start properly. Almost there. How fantastic. What a wonderful thing to have to just wait for so many people to come in. It's absolutely fantastic. Okay, let's get going and hope the rest make it in any moment. Okay, so for those of you that just joined, my name's Jen Forbes. I'm a trade unionist based in Truro. I started my working life as a BT engineer here in Truro, climbing telegraph poles for a living, but I quickly got involved with my trade union. And it was through that fantastic education that I got from being a trade unionist at a young age that I got involved in politics. There was so much that I wanted to change and make better as a trade unionist, and I could see that we weren't going to be able to do all of that from trade unionism alone. And so I joined the Labour Party in the hope that we would move it to the left. Now, I think we can all see that didn't quite work out as one would have hoped, did it? But we tried. Lots of us I know also tried, but we are where we are now. And I'm really proud to be sitting here in front of you all now as a Your Party member, standing as part of the Many team. So, as I said to some of you earlier, I'm standing in the southwest alongside the wonderful Terry Deans. I'm also going to be the host of tonight's call, and it's amazing to see. Well, we're almost on 750 people here right now, and people are still coming in. I'm just going to carry on, but it's so fantastic to see so many hundreds of you here already. That is exactly the mass politics that we are working to build. We've got a fantastic lineup of speakers for you all. The Many candidates are committed to building a People's Party for the Many. This call will last just over an hour. We'll hear from our speakers first. We've got community organisers, trade union activists, socialist councillors, before putting some time aside to answer your questions at the end. We've been soliciting questions from people via our online form, but if you've got one, do go on the link and that's posted in the chat. It should be posted any minute now, and we'll try to answer it. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to go on to our first speaker. We are thrilled to have Louise Reagan on our team, standing in the East Midlands alongside Riaz Khan. Louise is a teacher in Nottingham, standing for the CEC in a personal capacity. Outside of your party, she serves as the national chair of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. A prominent trade unionist, she's held senior national positions. She's involved in numerous community campaigns, building from the grassroots of our movement. Louise is going to speak about her experiences and how your party can be a force for good. Hello, Louise. Over to you.
Hi, Jen. Thanks so much. And yes, I am standing for a seat in the East Midlands, as Jen has said, alongside Riaz Khan, because, well, for many reasons, actually, because Jen's talked about her own experience. I'm also somebody who became politically active through my trade union. So I'm a teacher. I joined my trade union as soon as I became a teacher and became very active in my union. But I also recognise that trade unionism also has political links and that we need to fight through political arenas. And I also, like Jen, joined the Labour Party because I believe that that was the party that represented trade unions and was the place where trade unionists should be to fight for trade union rights, but also for greater rights across society, really, here. Um, So I joined the Labour Party. I then left the Labour Party after the Iraq War because I was so outraged about it. But then I did rejoin the party and tried very hard to fight for a better Labour Party, particularly when Jeremy stood as the leader of the Labour Party and did a huge amount of work here. And I think at that point, I felt there was real hope for change, actually. I genuinely believed, and you know, I hadn't felt that at any point in my political life that there was a real hope for change. I saw a mass movement established in a very short time, and I really hoped that we could fight for a better world. However, as all of us in this room, I'm sure, know, that isn't what happened, and that isn't how it played out. And I, like many others, was probably very disappointed by what happened and by the outcome of that. And then I actually left the Labour Party again after the war in Gaza started because I could not, in any good conscience, stay in a party that was not prepared to speak out against a genocide that was happening. And for me, I think your party has to be central in speaking out about what is happening in Palestine. I think there are many, many global issues that we should be talking about, and I could talk about all of those, but I don't have enough time to do that. So I'm going to talk about Palestine because it is very central to my heart. I've campaigned for decades for the Palestinian people, for justice for them. And I think hopefully all of us in this room are very aware that what has happened to the Palestinian people is not something that began, uh, in October 2 years ago. It is something that has been an ongoing injustice, which our government has been complicit in, and which has never dealt with. But I really believe that your party can be a force in change for this. I think we need a party that is going to speak out in support of the Palestinian people every single day because the injustices we have seen over the last 2 years build on decades of injustice, dispossession, land grab, unacceptable treatment of people, and a complete ignorance, really, of what is happening for them. So I think it is really important that we have a party that is at the forefront of fighting for them, and that is something that I would absolutely be committed to doing in my role if I were elected. Um, I also think, it was excellent that the your party initial conference had a meeting about Palestine. I was invited to be there and to speak at that, and I was very pleased to do that. It's really important that we keep raising this and continue to raise awareness about what is happening. I think we need to really keep mobilizing for the Palestine marches. We've had emails out about that previously, and that is really important, but we need to do more. And I think one of the things that I don't think we have done enough of yet, which I think I would really be wanting to push, is building for more local level campaigning, particularly around divestment, but also thinking about electing people at local elections, but also at national elections who are pro-Palestinian candidates including MPs, because we cannot allow this Labour Party to get away with their complicity in terms of what is happening. So that is a real central part of what I will be campaigning around and I will be fighting for within your party. The second issue for me, and this is the thing that runs through the core of my heart really, is trade unionism and the trade union movement. I have been a trade union member for the whole of my career. I believe the trade union movement has won a massive amount for workers. We can see that and we can see what is happening. And it was really good to see the Workers' Movement Commission passed at the conference. And that is really important. But we need to do more for for trade unionists and for members fighting back against attacks on their rights. There is a huge swathe of strikes at the moment across the movement. I think it is really important that we are really encouraging our members to get out on picket lines to support workers that are taking action against oppressive management, against oppressive policies that are putting in place in their workplaces. And we really need to do that. It was good to see that National Comms talked about the doctors' strike, but also we have a huge amount of strikes going on across the education sector. I think it's really important that people are out on the streets, joining picket lines, talking to workers about what is happening for them, and supporting their rights to fight back. There is a huge attack at the moment. You know, we were promised by this Labour Party that there would be an improvement of workers' rights. That is clearly not happening. There is going to be further attacks on us. There is going to be further attempts to undermine our rights. And the only way that we will win that is by fighting back in our workplaces and in our trade unions and making sure that we are ensuring that we are pushing back against the things that are being imposed on us. We need a real offer for working people. What we are seeing is a massive rise in the far right in our communities and across the country. And that is because there have been attacks on our pay, on our conditions, on housing, and on our living conditions. And we have to say loud and clear that there is money in this country to pay for these things, that it is not migrants coming here that are to blame. It is the government not investing in our public services, in housing, and the things that people need. So I think those are the things I will be fighting on. Those are the things I will continue to raise. That is what I have raised for decades, and I will continue to push forward on those things. So thanks very much, Jen. Very pleased to be here and happy to take any questions.
That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, Lou. It's such a pleasure to have you here with us, and you're as inspiring as always as a speaker. Um, Now, I realised at the beginning I should have said a few words about us as a collective. We haven't introduced ourselves properly. So, for those that aren't aware, the Many is a new campaign that we've set up within your party, aiming to get it back on track by building a party for the people. A few of us came together after conference feeling like many members that the party had lost its way and lost that energy and purpose that had powered its initial burst when hundreds of thousands signed up. So we decided to contest these elections and approach Jeremy for a conversation because we know that he shares our grassroots campaigning politics, and we're delighted to get him on board. With time in short supply, we've been reaching out to proven community organisers, trade union activists, and socialist councillors. Now, on to our second speaker. Hannah Hawkins is exactly what your party should be about. She is a working class woman, a youth leader, and a community activist. She is exactly the sort of person that without this kind of backing would struggle to gain prominence in your party. She's a young working class single mom from Teesside and a community activist who is ready to speak to us now. Fantastic. Thanks, Hannah.
Hi everyone. First of all, I don't think I've ever spoken to this many people at once in my life, so please bear with me. I do have a little boy who is in the front room with his dad at the minute, so if you hear any noises, that's what that is. um, I am standing for the Central Executive Committee in the North East, and I just wanted to say hello. I saw someone pop up and say they're from Middlesbrough. Hi, so am I. I love to see that. So, hello everyone. I'll tell you a bit about myself first, though. I am completely working class as far as it goes. I was raised by a single mother, hey Joe, of four. She worked tirelessly, and I mean backbreaking work, that quite literally backbreaking work, to raise us all. But she still relied on things like shower start centres and benefit top ups because life is expensive, and it was even when I was young. And then as I grew up, my health declined around the same time I had my son. So I've had two surgeries on my back. So the NHS means quite literally everything to me, because I do have a chronic pain condition that affects everything I do every day. And my little boy is autistic, ADHD, and other learning difficulties that have yet to be diagnosed. I'm going to try and slow down because I've seen some people saying they're hard of hearing, so please bear with me. I do know what it's like to navigate all of these systems that are slow, they're hostile, they're never designed with any sort of compassion or dignity. And I've been through it myself. This isn't abstract. This isn't just some random policy. This is actually my life. This is my day-to-day life, and it is exactly why I care so deeply about it, because I've lived it, and I get I get tired of seeing people making decisions about my life when they have never ever experienced a day of it or anything close. And I think it's really important to have that representation, especially as a young woman. I don't look like the average politician. I've got tattoos and piercings, but that has never affected how much I love my community, how much I love everyone around me, and how far I will go to help strangers and friends, and for anyone if they're struggling, I can help, I will. And that is really the foundation of what got me into community organising. I joined Labour in 2015. I was out leafleting, I did all of the usual stuff. But, like everyone else, I was quite let down at a certain point and did choose to leave after what happened with Jeremy. I just felt like the party went in a direction that I couldn't support anymore. And everything that's happened since then has proved that that was exactly the right decision. So when I when I saw this opportunity to join your party, I truly jumped at it, and I don't regret it at all. I am so excited to be a part of this team as well. This is an absolute dream for me, because being from a little town, I would not have had this exposure, not in a million years. And it means the world to me that I was already running as independent. This is giving me that push that is so important to have a voice like mine represented. I really, really feel like that's so important, because are we not tired of seeing people who don't understand our communities making decisions for us? Is that not just so tiring? I am exhausted with it. And that's why I'm running for CEC, because I would very much like to be in the room where decisions are made. For once, have that voice, that working class voice in the room where the decisions are actually being made for once. Because is that not such an incredible notion, such a dream in politics, to imagine that we would have these opportunities? I have done, I haven't just walked in off the street. I have done lots of things in the past, intermittently between raising my son and having surgeries on my spine. I've run and carried out multiple charities and, other community projects, as well as supporting so many others, like homeless charities, because it's not about titles. I do not care if anyone knows that I've done it. What matters to me is that I have helped. I have technically won an award for one of the charity projects, which I don't like talking about myself, but it feels like I should probably drop it in there. um, when the Ukraine war started, I started a project, and what I found was so many people on every single part of politics want to help. They want to get involved. They really do. They want to be a part of it, but charity isn't always actually accessible for people, especially disabled people and people who are single parents and people who have young children. I I wanted to make that. I wanted to make that accessible. That's what I set up logistical nightmare for me, but it created a network where people could all donate and all be a part of it. And it was amazing. And overall, we sent almost 40 van loads of humanitarian aid to the Ukraine border. And then as that progressed, so did the project. We set up like a coffee session so people could come and speak to people in their own language, so the kids could connect with children who'd been through what they'd been through, and also get them support for like the benefit system, the housing system, which is all difficult to navigate in your first language, never mind one that you've just literally been dropped in that day. So um, that's about me anyway. But I do believe the CEC is going to be so important because it's going to shape the culture, and the credibility of the party determines whether the members are going to be genuinely respected, whether safeguarding and accountability will be taken seriously, and whether our internal democracy functions in practice, not just in principle. And I am standing because I believe people need to understand how power feels from the other side. People need to know what it's like to rely on these systems. And I believe I would be a strong CEC member for three reasons that I will briefly run through now. I bring lived experience that is so often absent from these decision making spaces, in a variety of different, poverty, disability, carers, send advocacy. As I said, they're not abstract to me. These are my daily reality. Um, I'm serious about governance and accountability because compassion without structure fails. It doesn't work because while compassion is so important, so is structure, and it has to be there. It has to be taken seriously. We do need to be completely transparent with all processes, keep standards consistent, and ensure safeguarding and honest communication with members is always vital. And third, I would say I am principled, grounded, and I am prepared to speak up. I do care deeply about fairness, ethics, and whether our internal culture reflects the value that we actually claim to uphold. I am so proud to be standing as part of Jeremy Corbyn's team, the many, and to run alongside Kath Davies, whose integrity, commitment, and political clarity I respect in a big, big way. I'm standing with the many because it represents politics rooted in solidarity, seriousness, and connection to real lives. If elected to the CEC, I'll bring my full self to the role, my experience, my integrity, and my commitment to members and community. I'm not standing for status. I'm standing because our party must be shaped by people who understand the struggle, who value practical action, and who are prepared to do the hard work of building something better. And for the people who are wondering why I'm lacking in experience, that is true. But everyone had to do this job for the first time at some point. And if we just keep excluding people based on the fact they haven't done the job before, nothing will ever change. So there is no reason for, there's a lot of people on there, and we all have weaknesses and strengths, and that's exactly why I think this team works so brilliantly. So thank you everyone for listening. I'll pass you back to Jen.
Thank you so much, Hannah. That was really wonderful to hear from you, and your insights and your politics, I'm sure, are going to be a fantastic addition to this team going forward. Um, okay, next up we have Ismail Udin, our candidate in Yorkshire and Humber, alongside Monique Mosley. Your party emerged from a wave of revulsion at Starmer's Labour, embodied in the rise of the independence movement. Ismail is a brilliant example, a 21-year-old independent district councillor in Bradford, elected at 19 without party backing. He's a youth leader and a community activist. He's led youth provision, cost of living, and Palestine solidarity campaigns, building grassroots power, winning local change, and enhancing political participation among the marginalised. Ismail, over to you.
Right. Well, I'm going to start by saying thank you to everyone that's joined this call today. There's well over 800 people here, and on a Sunday evening, it is very impressive to see so many people. Now, first and foremost, I would like to hello and my salam to everyone. It is an honor to be on this call with so many organisers, activists, and people that do believe politics can be more about hope rather than despair. My name is Ismail Uddin. I'm a 21-year-old independent councillor in Bradford. I was elected at 19 with no party machine, no big donors, and no media backing, just community support, young people knocking on doors, and a belief that politics should work for the ordinary people. Now, I think we've covered a wide variety of topics, especially around Palestine. So I'm going to try to keep it to other topics as well. I'm going to start talking about politicalization, because for a lot of people, especially young people, politics won't start in a party meeting. They'll start when something goes wrong. For an ordinary working class person in Bradford, it could be that they're working several jobs, yet they can't make ends meet. They can't pay their bills. They keep seeing council tax increase year after year, yet their wages are still stagnant. For me personally, it started with youth services being cut, with families struggling to pay rent, with friends locked out of housing, and education being on the brink of disaster, and watching politicians talk about opportunity while doing nothing to change the reality on the ground. Now, that frustration is what pushed me and many others into politics. in 2017, and in 2019, I campaigned in both general elections. I was a young Labour Party member. I joined at the age of 13, I think. Um, I think shortly after the leadership election, I kept a close eye. I was in college, well, sixth form, and I kept a close eye on the Labour leadership. And slowly, I saw that Labour's core values were slowly drifting apart. We saw core pledges being dropped. We saw young people in the north being disregarded. And I was one of those young people. So in Bradford, we've seen the rise of community independence. Not just because people started hitting parties for the sake of it, but because Labour stopped listening. People felt like they're being taken for granted, which is why me and many others stood for office. And that's the opportunity I think your party has right now. Under the Tories, young people have been left with crippling debt, insecure housing, and a cost of living crisis. Under Labour, unfortunately, nothing really changed. There's no commitment to rent controls, tuition fees remain the same, private landlords are still protected, and reform offers nothing but division dressed up as answers. So young people are practically politically homeless. So what does excite me about your party or the many is that we say that this isn't as good as it gets. If we're serious about engaging young people, we need to be serious about material change, which includes abolishing tuition fees, campaigning for real rent controls, supporting tenant unions and housing movements, rebuilding youth services and community spaces, and treating young people as a problem to be managed and leaders to be trusted. So when I ran as an independent, the biggest lesson I learned was this: people will respond to honesty and action. When I show up consistently and when I organise locally, when I back people in struggle, whether that's tenants, whether that's workers, or communities standing up against racism and war, people will back you. Which is why your party can't just be an electoral vehicle. It'll have to be a movement. You'll have to be visible on every picket line. One that'll turn up for Palestine, one that'll support renters, not landlords, one that builds power from the bottom up. And crucially, it has to be democratic, because we've seen what happens when parties lose accountability, members are sidelined, decisions are stitched up, and communities are ignored, which is why your party does give us this chance. I'm extremely proud as a born and bred Yorkshireman to be standing for your party's CEC elections. I'm standing amongst very, very talented people, but more specifically, I think Monique Mosley as well. Um, and I think just moreover, just my personal perspective, I did go to state-funded schools. I have gone on to university. In fact, I'm a final year university student. I was elected at 19, and I am currently in my final year of university, but I am still very much ingrained in politics. I work as a district councillor for the Bowling and Barker ward in Bradford. On my day-to-day basis, I've seen a wide variety of issues. Quite predominantly, young people do come up to me, and they tell me the same thing. Who do I vote for? Who shall I vote for? And that's why I think it is crucial that we build an alternative on the ballot paper by also including young people, which is why I'm here today. I didn't expect to speak to over 800 people on a Sunday evening, but I am here today because I still do have hope that your party can be that alternative. So I would like to say on my final note, thank you to everyone that's attended today. Like I said, it takes a lot and it will take time to build a real chance in politics, to build real hope in politics. And from this point forward is to mobilize, is to be coherent and to work as one. Because again, 800,000 was signed up early last year because we all believed there was a real chance to deliver change. So let's go forward, let's be united, let's be one, but moreover, let's deliver that change for the working class people of Britain and the United Kingdom. Thank you.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much. I feel inspired listening to you. Okay, so that concludes our lineup of the ordinary member candidates for tonight. But before we hear from Jeremy, we have one more speaker, the fantastic Laura Smith, who is standing with Jeremy, Shokat, and Ayub in the public office holder section. Laura Smith is a trade unionist, community organiser, former teacher, councillor, and political activist who served as an MP for Crewe and Nantwich and as a shadow minister under Jeremy Corbyn. You may remember her from when she made headlines calling for a general strike in 2018. Laura will speak about the role of a socialist representative and how your party can connect with working class communities. Over to you, Laura.
Oh, amazing. Thanks, Jen. You can hear me all right, I'm hoping. I just want to say it's so wonderful to see so many people join in. As was mentioned before, on a Sunday, it really has warmed my heart, and we need to continue in this manner, building and being proud of what we are and who we are, proud socialists. But let's remember, we're here because we are people who know that something is broken. But we're also here because we believe something fundamentally different is actually possible. Not the cosmetic change, not rebranding of the same failed politics, but a credible alternative rooted in organisation, democracy, and community power. Now, change, it doesn't come from slogans. It won't come from internal point scoring. It comes when ordinary people get organised together. And that is why I'm so, so proud to be standing with these beautiful people as part of the many campaign in the CEC elections. And I just want to be clear why I am standing personally. It was mentioned before, I did go to Westminster and I have seen that Westminster bubble close up in all its true ugliness. And I know how it narrows thinking, how it disconnects politics from real life. But what we have to realise is that that bubble, it doesn't just exist in Parliament. It exists across society, in our institutions, in organisations, and even in our movements created to challenge the system. Because all of us, we are responding to the same pressures: capitalism, competition, and fear. If we don't consciously challenge that, we produce it, even when we have the best of intentions. We do not build power by pandering to the right, but we also do not build power by retreating into closed circles. A credible alternative means organising where people actually live and work, building trust, and that takes time, and shifting power, not just speaking in rhetoric. It means an economic vision that actively fights oppression, that redistributes wealth and decision-making power, that takes essential parts of life out of the hands of the 1%, and shows people in practice what economic democracy and community cohesion could look like. That is not abstract. That is housing, it's energy, it's transport, it's the NHS, and it's how we look after our planet. Now, my experience as a mother, first of all, as a teacher, a trade unionist, a councillor, and an MP has taught me a few things, especially being a mother: how to listen first and to act second, how to translate grassroots concerns into real policy, and how to protect people in the most challenging circumstances. I've built structures under pressure. I've held people together when tensions have run extremely high, and I've delivered results in politically hostile environments. And that is exactly the kind of experience that I believe that we need on the CEC. If what we want is to get branches that work, members that are protected, and a party that can grow. And if we want this to succeed, we must build a party with firm foundations, one that can grow, not fracture. People, we have to realise, come to politics from different places. They have different experiences. They have different levels of understanding. We must stay very clear that we stand with people who are oppressed and marginalised always. That isn't up for debate. But we bring people with us. We do not chastise people for not already being where we are. We have to let go of some of the arrogance, and the assumptions about people's characters has to stop. There are millions of people who are politically disengaged. Politics has repeatedly failed them. They are exhausted. They are cynical, and for damn good reason. And our responsibility is not to perform righteousness. It is to organise hope through seriousness, through competence, and through solidarity. And this is why the CEC matters. It's not symbolic. It is foundational. And we need a CEC that will deliver. Now, I'm not sure on my timing. I always go over, Jen, so I'm sorry. I would like to get in a little bit more. just about the idea that the many, is just the Labour Party rehashed. That does make me laugh a little bit, and I'll explain why. When I was elected to Parliament in 2017, I was a community activist who built a movement around school cuts. I won because the things I cared about, other people cared about too. And I spoke to them. I reached out to them and I listened to them. And that was against all of the odds that I won that in an unwinnable seat against a multi-billionaire minister in an election that, let's not forget, was designed to destroy Jeremy Corbyn. It is no lie that the first time I entered Parliament, I was an elected MP for my hometowns. As Hannah mentioned earlier, I, coming from where I never dreamed in my wildest dreams, thought that I would end up there. People who looked like me, they spoke like me, came from my background, they didn't go to places like Westminster to Parliament. It was so unlikely that I was going to win that when I did find out I won, I had to beg, borrow and steal and persuade my mother and father, as a single mother at the time, that they were going to have to up their childcare duties significantly. But what that did going to Parliament, it proved to me that the battle for change can never and will never be achieved by politicians and laws being made alone. It works through community believing and fighting for something. That's what led to the NHS. That's what led to rights being won in the workplace. That is what led to movements such as pushing back against the poll tax. And more recently, we've got the response to COVID, furlough, PPE, frontline staff coming together. All of that was demanded by people and the government had to move. In all these cases, changes happened not because politicians decided it, but because ordinary people got organised, made their voices heard, and created power from the ground up. And these are exactly the kind of grassroots organising lessons that a party like ours should embrace when we're building branches and community structures. Those that were there going through that experience with Jeremy, who were attacked and worn down and bullied by the Labour Party machinery. If anybody thinks anyone here wants to recreate that, in the words of my daughter, they need to give their head a wobble. We are here because we learned from it and because we refuse to repeat the same mistakes. I am coming to a close now. I just want to say what the many offers is seriousness without arrogance, urgency without recklessness, grassroots power with real protection, a commitment to building a party that is democratic, that's rooted in communities, and is capable of delivering real change. If we are truly serious about empowerment, if we are serious about community organising, and if we are serious about a fundamental alternative, then we must build this properly. And that is why the many deserves your support. And that is why this moment, you being here now, watching this, matters. Thank you, Jen. Thanks, everybody.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Laura. That was absolutely wonderful to hear from you. I'm so pleased and honoured to be standing alongside you in this group. Okay, so last and certainly not least, we have a certain political activist from Islington North joining us, the wonderful Mr. Jeremy Corbyn. Over to you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jen, and thank you everyone for being on this call tonight. There's well over 800 people on this call, and I can't totally keep up with the chat box, but it looks to me like more than 2/3 of the people on the call have already contributed to the chat box, which is great. That is healthy. That is wonderful. We're on a big call at the minute. We're going through our elections to establish a committee for your party to develop your party. We've got to come out of this very short election period with a sense of purpose and a sense of unity and a sense of inclusion. And we've got to ensure that all our focus is on building in our communities, on being a campaigning force at the very grassroots in our communities, not some top-down organisation. I think we've all had enough of those in the past. And I want to say a personal thank you to an awful lot of people that showed me enormous friendship, courtesy and loyalty during my time as leader of the Labour Party. And I think they began to recognise the realities of what the British establishment was capable of towards a party that they felt threatened their existence and their privilege. And I'll be very proud of those people that did so much work. When I stood down, there were 600,000 members of the Labour Party. They don't publish figures anymore, but I would wager they're well below 200,000 at the moment. But this isn't about recreating the Labour Party. It's not a lesson in the history of what went on in the past. It's about how we go forward, obviously learning lessons from the past. There are 4.5 million children in Britain living in poverty at the present time. The top wealthiest 1% of the British people have times 230 the wealth of the poorest 10%. There are 250,000 people who are homeless at the present time. Most people in the private rented sector pay at the least level 30% of their pay on rent. At the other end of it, 70 or even 80% of their rent is taken up, their pay is taken up by their rent in the private rented sector. We have horrendous levels of social injustice and inequality in our society. Food banks were almost unknown in 2010. In my own constituencies, at least one food bank in every one of the 8 wards that I represent. And the same would be said over most of the country. Over 1 million people regularly have to access food banks, and they're often people in work. And so what we have is the most appalling growth of inequality, poverty and injustice in our society. Rough sleeping homelessness rising all the time. So many people having to spend their lives just meandering from one in London, one tube station to another, other places, bus stations or whatever, trying to collect the money to get them through a night shelter and then worry about how they're going to feed themselves after that. None of this is necessary. None of this is right. It could all be so different. Yet we have a government that is continuing austerity. Austerity 2.0 is with us. With the exception of the Department of Defence, every single government department is facing what's called efficiency savings or direct cuts at the present time, and that hits local government as well. We have wars going on in Ukraine. We have wars going on in Palestine. We have a war going on in Sudan. We have wars going on in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And we have horrendous levels of militarism around the world. And instead of standing up for peace, instead of being that voice for peace and that voice for justice, the government proposes to ultimately almost double defence expenditure, which will mean more cuts in other areas and increasing militarisation of our society. Where is their criticism of Donald Trump and his national security strategy, which essentially says that the US needs everybody else's natural resources, so it'll go around the world and get them, as they've gone in to Venezuela, as they're threatening to go in to Cuba, as they're threatening in so many other places around the world. And the environmental crisis that is obviously on us, it's obviously happening. There's obviously a massive loss of biodiversity. There's obviously a loss of environmental sustainability. There's obviously massive levels of global weather patterns that are changing and creating extreme and unusual weather patterns. Yet all 3 of the parties in Westminster are running away from this, taking it down on the agenda. All of them are concentrating on the fear factor of what reform might do. Reform do well because they can go into any community that's suffering bad housing, loss of jobs, unemployment, insufficient public services, and somehow or other miraculously blame it all on refugees. It's complete nonsense, it's totally dishonest, and it is fascist thinking that blames a vulnerable minority of people who are refugees for the problems created by free market capitalism and this kind of society. So we have to do something different. That's why we're determined to set up your party. Your party, rooted in communities. Your party, open to people in all those communities. Your party working with people in their communities. The kind of community organising model that is so important and the only way to combat the power of the mainstream media, the malign influence of GB News, the malign influence of so many other media platforms run by right-wing newspapers. And so we need now to organise ourselves. We've recruited a lot of members. We have a lot of people signed up as members at the moment. We have lots more who are looking to us to work with us in the future. And that means we've got to get going on it very, very rapidly. We are electing people representing each region of the UK and specifically each English economic region, 2 per region. And then we obviously develop your party autonomously in Scotland and Wales. That is an important point to make. And we will be a very strong and very powerful force. And we will be fighting elections, the council elections coming up in the very near future, whole raft of postponed elections that will take place in 2027, and then a parliamentary election 28, 29 or thereabouts. But this is not just an electoral machine. In fact, it's almost anything but an electoral machine. Electoral machines concentrate solely on the technology, the technicalities and bones of an election in order to deliver a vote on the day. We're different. We'll be uniting people in communities to win those battles to prevent hospitals being closed, to win those battles to get Palantir and the privateers out of our National Health Service, to fight for water privatisation, to fight to expose water privatisation for the hypocrisy, the lie and the con it's been. £72 billion taken out of the water industry by private profit. And we are suffering pollution and damage to our environment as a result. And so when we challenge all these things, we want something different. We want democracy in the running of the water industry, in the energy industry. We want democracy in the way public services are run. We want to challenge the attack on civil liberties, the attack on right to jury trial, the attempt to bring in ID cards, and so many other things. It's up to us to do that and work with all those existing campaigns, with all those people that are out there working. Now, I'll finish on this. When we've gone through these elections, we'll have a CEC. The job of that CEC will be very important to develop the party in every part of the country, the regions and so on, to decide where we prioritise campaigns and what we do about it. But it's also about recognising that within our membership, there are people with massive knowledge and massive talent. So I want us to see us setting up large communities of people who want to develop policies in a particular area. The government is, for example, reviewing disability benefits with a view to cutting them. It is attacking personal independence payments with a view to cutting them. Why don't we have a commission made up of people with disabilities who will then examine the living standards and the problems of people with disabilities and put forward alternative proposals? We can do exactly the same principle in a number of other areas. We can have youth commissions and so on. We can have an international policy commission made up of the many talented and incredibly knowledgeable people from all over the world who are supporters or members of our party. Think of what we can achieve together. Think of what we can do by mobilizing people to do something different. We'll be that voice. Reform have no answers other than division and hatred. The Labour Party is heading off in the direction of authoritarianism and free market economics and sucking up to Trump and anybody else around the world. They are not an alternative. Let's be that alternative. Let's be that alternative voice. And you know what? We can build a great culture, bring people together, music, poetry, art, literature, as well as all the campaigning work that we do. I've done a lot of that within the Peace and Justice Project, and I see the Peace and Justice Project as being an important place for the germination of ideas, which will, of course, be fed into the thinking of our party, your party, our party. So let's be together, work hard together, campaign together, but above all, show the greatest possible respect to each other, because it's often not shown by state machines, it's not shown by the media. We'll show respect to each other, and we'll show the power of communities to achieve things together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. That was absolutely fantastic. No end of respect here for you in the room. You can see all those icons flowing across the screen right now. That's superb. Look, we're so glad to be in this fight with you, the man whose leadership made this party possible. And I know I speak for all of us in this call in expressing my admiration for your resilience in the face of the endless attacks that you have had, the smears, from the media, etc., etc. And, you know, we really admire you for keeping going and keep being that shining example in Islington North that you are. So thank you. It was only as a result of you being so embedded in your community, where you exemplified in your people's forums, that you were able to win what was a safe Labour seat as an independent. And not many people could do that. And we admire you for that as well. Okay. Thank you all for a great evening and so many great contributions. It's been wonderful to have a diverse array of speakers representing all of us here in your party in such a wonderful way, from a young Muslim organiser in Bradford to a teacher and a trade unionist in Nottingham. What unites our team at the Many is two things: proven experience as organisers and a determination to get your party back on track by facing outwards and campaigning on the issues that matter most to people, from the cost of living to opposition to racism and war. If you share that vision, make sure you've signed up to the campaign and joined our WhatsApp community. If you can, please also consider donating to our campaign via the link in the chat, paying for this Zoom account, getting videos done. It all adds up. So we're grateful for any support. Before we go, we've got a few questions that have come in. Accountability to the membership will be a core principle of the Many candidates if elected. We've seen in Starmer's Labour the damage a lack of democracy and accountability can do. So I'm going to ask a few of the candidates some questions. I'm actually going to take the first one myself. It's something really close to my heart. So the first question that came in was, how can we make sure your party doesn't become Labour 2.0? How do we do politics differently? Now, I mentioned briefly at the beginning, and some of you may know, I was a parliamentary candidate in 2019. So I saw firsthand the impact that the bureaucracy in Labour had on us as socialists trying to win elections. We came really close to winning in Truro and Falmouth, which was, it'd never been a Labour seat. It's a pretty rural constituency. It was an extraordinary people-powered effort that did that. And it really hurt me that the effort of those hundreds of people was effectively sabotaged by the Labour machine. The closer they could see us getting to winning, even through the campaign, they were doing things to undermine us. I can absolutely promise every single one of you that we will never be Labour 2.0. That is not our intention at all, right? And there are ways we can demonstrate that that is the case, right? You saw what they did to Jeremy. You know, all of you know, you will have seen this, the way they undermined his leadership. So we are going to be united in our purpose. We are never going to treat our own people like that. As Jeremy said, respect is absolutely essential to the way we intend to do things. So a couple of points. Under Jeremy's leadership, Labour was fundamentally divided by the people who wanted that radical redistribution of wealth and power. All of us on this call, I'm sure, were united in that cause. And then there were those that wanted to protect the status quo. So we are never going to have that division. That was the major stumbling block, and it resulted in so many MPs and party staff fighting against our transformative project. So we won't have that. We'll be united in our commitment to build a more just and equal society. So let's not view each other as enemies. None of us in this party are right wing. We're going to be united on the causes and going out there and speaking to the people about the things that we want to change. Then there is the way in which we're going to work internally, and that there are two facets to this: internal democracy and political activity. Now, on internal democracy, we've already shown we are not going to be that same type of party. We value people and their input at every level. So after conference, we've got those democratic structures. One member, one vote is a fantastic way of showing that we really do value grassroots input. And from the many, we absolutely intend to continue that. So keeping that internal democracy really vibrant and empowering the grassroots is the way that we will never sink to being that bureaucratic party that Labour were. That also means having staff that are accountable to the elected executive, mandatory reselection, open selections. All of these things will show from our internal democratic structures that we aren't going to be Labour 2.0. Then there is the political activity. I want us to win power, and I think we can do that. But it's not just about elections, it's about how we build power as we go. That is absolutely essential. Jeremy pioneered the community organising unit. I had a community organiser working with us here in Cornwall. It was absolutely fantastic. Starmer shut it down straight away. We're not going to be about that. We are going to be embedding community organising in everything we do. And that means that we are aligned with our communities and not that top-down bureaucratic party that Starmer's Labour has absolutely become. We're going to need to build that approach. Having trade unionists that are used to organising in their workplaces and so many community organisers already involved in your party means we can absolutely do that. But take a look at the bios from some of the candidates that are standing with the many team, and you'll see this is absolutely rooted in who we are and what we intend to do if we are elected to the CEC. So hopefully that has convinced you that this is absolutely a priority to us to not be Labour 2.0. Under no circumstances is that where we're going. Okay, now I'm going to move on to, this is probably one of the most asked questions I've seen across all forums. So I think it's a really important one for us to answer. And that is, what is our position on branches getting data? Obviously, everybody wants to get their branches up and running. Data is a key part of that. So I'm going to hand over to Louise to explain to you our position on that.
Okay, thanks, Jen, so much for that. I mean, we obviously agree. We need to get branches constituted and get them their data, which they have rights to in the Your Party constitution. That is a really important part of what we want to do. We need to do that because this party can't just be, as Jen has outlined really eloquently already, Labour 2.0, knocking on doors for votes. We need a party that is based in the grassroots and based and led by members who are dealing and living the everyday experiences. We need our members to be out on the picket lines and supporting all those organisations in the communities that need our support. The Constitution also agrees monthly assemblies to be organised by branches open to the whole community. And I think this is really important. I think too often we talk to the same people, the people that agree with us. And actually, we need to go out and start talking to other people within our communities about what our vision is, about what we want, and about what we are standing for. And I know Jeremy has already done lots of this work Islington North. So I think we can really build on that work. The many is all about this. We are about getting organised at the grassroots and harnessing our collective power. So I think, as Jen has said, and as others have already said that are on this slate, we are all activists. We have spent our life fighting for a better society for other people. We are committed to making a different world. That's what I want. I don't want my children and my grandchildren to grow up in a society that I've had to grow up in. We can build a society that is better for the future. So, if elected, getting branches going, properly resourced, properly funded will be a real priority for us because I know the only way that we are going to win and make change is by building from the grassroots.
Fantastic. Thank you, Louise. Really appreciate that answer. Okay, and we did say we are going to finish at 8 o'clock, but I think we've got time for one more really important question. So, and that's on the issue of young people and how do we engage young people, which is obviously going to be essential to our success going forward. So, as we are blessed with having Ismail here tonight, I'm going to hand over to you to answer that question for us.
Right, thank you very much. I'm not going to try keep everyone for too long, but I'm going to keep it with a quite a brief phrase. Um, Stop saying you're inspired by young people, start including young people. I think young people have been shafted by the Tories and austerity. Labour has not fixed any of this. As a result, we've got high rents, we've got high debts, and we have this disengaged generation of young people. So what policies we go forward is, like I said, rent controls and abolishing tuition fees. Moreover, I think young people are interested in politics. I mean, I'm a core example, whether that's the genocide in Gaza or whether that's the ongoing, massacre in Sudan. Young people are exposed to politics almost 24/7. We all have access to a mobile phone or social medias. So they are witnessing horrors and distrusting things daily on the news, in front of their screen, etc. They need to start campaigning. They need to be on the lead, they need to start leading these campaigns. Now, I think finally, your party has had some good videos. The communication could be much better. It is criticism, but it's not horrible criticism. I do think that young people need to step up and take charge. Because, like I said, as a district councillor, but as a university student, I encounter so many young people on a daily basis, and they're always interested. But the core question is, how do I get involved? Um, that's a great question. There is no distinct route into getting involved with politics, but what you can do is locally campaign on a national scale, and continue down this route. But also, I think the last thing is I'd like to see a greater presence on TikTok. Um, and I know that TikTok might not be a more suitable platform, but you will reach young people when you go to their level. You speak to people on their level, and they will understand using these big phrases, political jargon to young people or to anyone in that kind of element creates that kind of barrier to understanding what your party is about. So yeah, I think that's my answer for that question.
Okay, that's fantastic. We really value your insight and input there, actually, and I hope everyone else appreciated that too. Okay, well, I think that draws us to a close. Thank you all so much for attending tonight. Hopefully, you've seen the links in the chat. Sign up to the many if you haven't already. Keep in touch with us. Join the WhatsApp groups. Follow the announcements. Make sure you're looking at your party website. Get ready for endorsing our fantastic candidates across the country when it opens in just a couple of days. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to see so many of you here and to hear from our absolutely incredible speakers tonight. Thank you all for giving up your time and sharing your wonderful insights with us all. Looking forward to seeing you all on more events in the future. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Brilliant.